Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This is a tea time chat all about multichrome eyeshadows. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. I'm not doing a tea time chat, I'm doing a coffee chat with my new Mickey Halloween mug that I picked up when I was in Paris last weekend to chat with you about the multichrome thing. There's a reason why I wanted to film this, but before I get to the topic of this video, yes, I'm makeupless. I just went to Paris for 48 hours after work on Thursday, and it was a really fun time, but I woke up this morning and I just felt so tired, and it's gray and it's dreary and it's a true fall day. So I just wanted to be in my PJs and my dressing gown and have coffee on my couch all day. That's sort of like the vibe. So, and my skin also needed a break because I had to pre-film the videos that you saw last weekend. I actually did my makeup for like 3 weeks straight every single day. And I'm usually of the opinion that my skin needs like a makeup-free day once a week. And I've decided that this is going to be the day. But I still wanted to come on here and film anyway. So, yes, I'm makeup-free, but we're just still going to chat because that's what this video is all about. So, let me have a bit of my cappuccino in my new mug. I just thought this was so cute. I couldn't leave it. I couldn't leave it. So yes, tea time chat all about multichromes. And multichromes are, I think, something that has become very standard, especially in the eyeshadow palettes. And the reason why I wanted to film this video, because the other day I finally decided to catch up on watching some YouTube videos that I still had to watch. And I saw Angelica Newquist actually doing a video where she tried to explain why palettes have become more expensive. And she titled her videos, "Did multichromes like kill the beauty industry or whatever?" Something along those lines. And she really came at it from like a brand's perspective, I feel, where she really talked about why her palettes from Singe Beauty don't have too many of these special shades in because it would just mean a price increase. And that's why we've been seeing some expensive palettes. I actually filmed another video just now, and for instance, palettes like this that do have some like sparkly shimmers in tend to now be 65 euros and up. If you're looking at like Adept palettes, they're like close to 100 euros, which is a lot of money for a single makeup product. And she tried to explain like how having all these special shades in, they are more expensive formulas. And then you also need to factor in the fact that that's going to make makeup more expensive. But I wanted to come at this from a slightly different perspective and just talk about why you do not need multichrome shimmers in every single palette you buy, and why we do not need multichromes, and that therefore not only are like, it's sort of like a back and forth, I feel. On the one hand, brands are giving us what we want, in a sense, but at the same time, I also feel there is a consumer that is being forgotten with this focus on these really immensely shimmery, shifty sort of shades. So before we get to my opinion, I do want to point out multichromes I see as, like, it's the shifty things. It's the things that look really wowza. When you swatch them, when they go full on, you can see 4 or 5 different colors in one shade of eyeshadow. That's what a multichrome is. I remember the days where we got satin shimmers and then all of a sudden they became metallic, and then we got the flakies, and then we got the pressed glitters, and then we got duochromes, and then we got multichrome. So multichrome is like the shimmer final boss, and we are now of course getting multichromes with holographic shimmers in, where we almost get a conglomeration of like a super metallic, flashy, impactful shimmer combined with obvious particles in there. I don't want to call them glitter because it's not necessarily going to be glitter, but obvious sparkly bits in there, and at the same time it's shifting as well. That's like the current trend. That's what you're seeing brands evolving into. And I definitely feel that there is a market for that, and there is a way of making those shadows like they're super appealing to look at, right? They look super pretty. But here's my reason for thinking that multichromes are incredibly overrated and why not every single palette needs them. Not only will it bring costs of eyeshadow palettes down if brands would stop focusing on them, but it's also going to appeal to a wider customer base. That's just my opinion. I feel that multi-chrome shadows are beautiful. They are absolutely gorgeous to look at. But in practicality, in usage, in makeup looks, they add very little. They add very little compared to what a classic metallic shimmer can do. And the reason why I say that is I don't have the most amount of lid space ever, like, to have existed. I feel like I'm therefore like I feel like so many of the beauty creators on Instagram, like, they are blessed with lots of lid space and they can make these shadows work. But if you don't have that much lid space, you can get away with wearing one multi-chrome at the time. One. Because the minute you try putting more than one in a single makeup look, unless the placements are going to be hugely varied, they're all going to blend together and the shifts will actually disappear. Because the reason why that multichrome is going to look really shifty on your lid is if you can apply it from inner corner to outer corner, because then the curve of your eye will help it to create the shift on your eyeballs. It's not gonna work if you only put it in like a very small spot. If all you do is put a multichrome shimmer in a very targeted area, you're not gonna see the shift. You need the wider application in order for it to show up. And therefore, I feel like multichromes are the ultimate scam because they make for such beautiful online content. They look beautiful in palettes. They look beautiful if people use their phones and the flash on the back of their hand, and then it looks all shiny and shimmery. But to get them to look like that on your lids is practically impossible unless you walk around with like a ring light the entire day and you're moving around your head around like this. Nobody lives their lives like that. Nobody walks around with the kind of looks that's going to make multichrome eyeshadows pop. Which is why I feel that this focus on these high shine, shimmer multichrome eyeshadows is actually a step back. Is it great for artistry? Can you do beautiful things with it? Yes, but you're missing the mark of the average consumer. The average person who puts makeup on in the morning, goes to work, and comes home and washes it off again. If you're not doing makeup for Instagram, you do not need 15 multichromes in a single palette and be paying €100 for it. You really don't. You really absolutely do not. Does it look beautiful? Yes. This is where I feel the online beauty community and real-time makeup users are just so far removed from each other. And where the focus on what looks good on camera becomes leading rather than it being practical, easy to use makeup that is going to look good no matter what you do. You have textured lids, multichromes are a no-go because the texture will show up. Do you have oily lids? Multichromes are a no-go because these formulas need to be pretty emollient for those shifts to even show up. Thirdly, if you don't have a lot of lid space and you cannot put it in a larger area, multichromes are going to be difficult to use. And if you're prone to creasing because you have hooded eyes, because you have deep set eyes, whatever the reason might be, if you're prone to creasing, multichromes are going to look dreadful within the hour because of those emollient formulas. Can you make it work? Like me, I double prime my lids so I can make it work long term, but there's a reason why I'm not a huge fan of the Adept formula, not because I don't think it's good. I think it's great. It looks beautiful. From an aesthetic perspective, I think they are some of the most beautiful shadows on the planet. But if I stick them on my eyeballs, it's going to crease. And crease to the point where things start to like separate and really like bunch up. It's not like just a bit of creasing, you know? It's as the makeup breaks down, it's just going to look terrible. And I can barely pat it back in, which is why I don't rate that formula as highly as some other people do. Maybe if you have less issues with creasing to begin with, if your lids are just smoother or whatever it is that's going on, you may not have that issue, and you will love those shadows for sure. But I feel that multichromes and the focus on having multichromes in every single palette is actually making brands really, really lazy. The focus is on making things look good for camera, but forgetting that real people need to use this makeup as well. So unless you're a makeup enthusiast like me and you're a bit of a magpie, it has no use. It has absolutely zero use. If you want multichromes, my favorites are the singles from the Stained Glass collection by Clionadh. Those, in my opinion, till this day, are still the best multichromes out there. Because not only do they do multichromes in loads of different finishes and textures, whether you want there to be glitter in them, whether you want them to be extra foily, whether you want them to be jewel toned or have more of a neutral base, they offer so much variety that building yourself, and I believe that Clionadh has now announced that they're doing like separate palettes that just have the wells in them, so you can pick your own shades and fill up the palette that way. So you don't need to like buy an entire separate palette just because it has multichromes. If you have a couple of good mattes and you buy a couple of multichromes, and you have a couple of those Clionadh stained glass, or like Divina does some decent ones as well. Like indie brands traditionally have been doing really good like multichromes eyeshadows already as singles to begin with. But because the focus is on palettes so much, they have been putting them into palettes, making the palettes really expensive. But are we as consumers getting the makeup that we want and need? I mean, I love that Natasha Denona does multichrome shimmers in almost every single palette now. Like there's a multichrome shimmer in the I Need a Warm, which I think is beautiful, but it's one shade. It's not like Adept where most of the palette is these shades. And like I mentioned, once you start putting these multichrome, shimmery, sparkly things all together on a lid, the effect is not going to be as impactful as if you did like a matte sort of setup and then use the multichrome to be like, to take center stage, you could say, to be the focal point of the look. That to me is much more impactful, and it's going to show up a lot more beautifully on most people compared to having like loads of these shimmering, shiny things. Again, do I love a multichrome? Yes, I love them. They look beautiful. But at what cost? And I'm not just talking about the cost of producing the palette and buying them. I definitely think, like I said, that it's making brands lazy, because as long as it looks good on camera, they know it will sell. But then once we get to the actual usage side of things, and you're someone like me who does their makeup in the morning, goes to work for 8 hours, then does a workout class and doesn't come home until 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. I should say. I mean, my makeup has to last. It has to last a good 12 hours. That's the standard I go by. I don't just do a look for Instagram, wipe it off, and be makeupless the rest of the day, even though I'm not wearing any makeup today. So I definitely feel like multichromes and the focus on that, while beautiful and while absolutely stunning, there's only a very small window for it to actually be effective. And like I said, it makes brands lazy. One of the questions I see so much in my comments is of people who say like, oh, but like I have quite textured lids. Can I use these shadows? Because very often if you have any sort of texture on your lids, it's either going to crease, the shimmer particles can fall down your face throughout the day as the shadow starts to break down, which is just not a good look. And that's what I mean by they're just not really targeting it on a very wide demographic. If you're in your early 20s and you're saying, oh, but it looks stunning on me, if that makeup is not tested on someone who's 50 plus, you can't talk. You can't talk about the quality of makeup based on just using it on model skin, which is very often what happens in the makeup community. The people who go viral with their makeup looks are very often younger people, or people who look young enough for it to work out. Very rarely do we see brands posting videos with people who are older, because not just because they're not the target audience for that brand necessarily, but because they just forget about it. And I definitely feel that this focus on multichromes is actually almost like a form of ageism within the makeup community, where you can really see that the formulas are just not tested for people. Like, I'm 40 plus by now, so I actually think I'm in that category already as well, of the people who are kind of forgotten, which is why I rate brands like Makeup by Mario or a Natasha Denona, Pat McGrath, Charlotte Tilbury even. Like, that makeup is made to appeal not only to a wider demographic of makeup users, but it's also tested on them. They are the ones, they are the accounts where you look at things where they do makeup on people with more mature skin. It's one of the reasons why I rate Lisa Eldridge so highly, because whenever there's a new launch, not only do we get makeup looks shown on obvious models with good skin, but there's also models there with different age ranges, different skin types, very deliberately to showcase that the product is going to work for a lot of different people. And I definitely feel that that's something that we're missing with indie brands. While I love a lot of indie brands, but there are makeup consumers outside of beauty enthusiasts who post on Instagram. You know, there's more to makeup users than just that. Is that going to be their core demographic and that's what most people buy? Yeah, for sure. But that's where I feel like a very big gap within the industry is actually coming from, is does the brand focus on makeup enthusiasts purely, or do they try to cater to a much wider demographic where it needs to be foolproof because someone with very little makeup skills also need to be able to use it? And that's where I feel a very big gap tends to happen, especially when it comes to multichromes. If you don't have the right brushes, if you don't know much about eyeshadow placement, you are simply not going to get out of a multichrome shadow what it could potentially lead to. I get lots of comments when I wear multichrome eyeshadow to work, because to my colleagues, none of them are really makeup wearers. It looks like I've done a ton, even though I literally just slapped a multichrome shadow all over my lid and called it a day. So in a way, it's almost like a lazy hack to making your eyeshadow look great, but you do need to have the makeup skills in order for it to get there. Because if you don't, like, if you overblend a multichrome, the effect is gone. It's just going to look like a murky base. It's not going to look the way you want it to be, and therefore I feel like multichromes can just be really difficult to play with. It's not beginner friendly. It's not makeup user friendly, and that's where I feel a really big gap actually exists in the makeup community. So besides costs, makeup doesn't have to be this expensive for it to be good. And that's why I like Angelica's honesty about not putting all of these special shades in like a lot of people are asking her to, because she also wants to keep it affordable. But from a usability perspective, having one or two really good multichromes in an eyeshadow palette can take it to that next level of versatility that I really appreciate. And this is where I'm always coming from whenever I do reviews. I remember a time where I didn't know what to do with my eyeshadow. I came to makeup later in the game, and I'm self-taught. I never went to makeup school. I just did whatever I saw other people do, and I tried to replicate it on myself. And that taught me a lot about my own sort of like bone structure and eyeshadow placement. And I've just settled for something that I feel works, that I can do really quickly in the morning, and that is sort of like taking up very little brain space in my day-to-day life. Can I do fancy cut creases and halo eyes and all of those different things? I can, but I don't have an hour to do my makeup every single day. I have 15 minutes from start to finish. That includes the eye look. Yeah, that includes the full face. It includes going from primer to running out the door and putting on setting spray. That's 15, maybe 20 minutes tops. That's all I have. That's what I get. Yeah, so I don't have time to sit down and do these really elaborate things. And I think that a lot of people don't have that time. Of course, I love makeup playtime. I love sitting down at the end of the day before I take off my makeup to see what the sparkly things can do, and ooh, what happens if I layer this? I do that too. But I just feel like this focus on multichromes is really sort of putting the focus on an element of makeup that only exists for aesthetics and not for actual practical makeup use, and the reason why 95% of people are using makeup. That's personally how I feel about multichromes. That's why if there are too many multichromes, those eyeshadow palettes are always going to be knocked down a bunch. So I'm sitting here chatting away at you guys, and all of a sudden I see my mic so my mic actually cut out. So if this audio bit sounds differently, but I was driving my point home. I was actually talking about how I feel that like versatility is my main aim whenever I'm reviewing an eyeshadow palette. I want there to be a mix of mattes and shimmers. I want there to be one or two really good multichromes, but I also want there to be like a shimmer that I can use in the inner corner, and I want something to be used as a topper. I want something to be there to smoke things out, but I don't want the palette to be too dark. Like, I'm always looking for the first thing I'm looking for whenever I review a palette is versatility, is how many different looks can I get out of a palette. And it shouldn't take a different multichrome shimmer for every single look I do. It just shouldn't be the focus of a palette for me. So that's why whenever a palette has too many multichromes in, I always knock it down a little bit in terms of rankings and stuff, because I just feel that having too many multichromes in is actually going to take away from the versatility of the palette. If I want, like, the palettes that I rate the highest have a really good split between like 50% shimmers, 50% mattes. And then of those shimmers, I want there to be also variety in what those shimmers can do and what they offer me. If I have that level of variety and versatility, I know that whatever combination I make of the shades in the palette, it's going to work for me every single time. I will have less issues with creasing. I will be able to pull a look together every single time, and that's why I come at things from a slightly different perspective. It's just what I like. And like I mentioned, I remember a time where I didn't have the makeup skills to like whip an eye look together in 2 seconds flat and it still looked decent. It's been a very steep learning curve, but I also realized there's loads of people out there who may not have those makeup skills, and you should not have that level of makeup skills in order for you to be able to pull a good look together. Sure, with a multichrome, you can easily take a look from meh to great, and everybody's going to look like they're gonna think you've done a lot, even though all you've done is put a multichrome shimmer all over the lid. But it takes one. It takes one. I definitely think that if you were to like look into good multichromes, like I said, Cleona would be my go-to brand to look into, is to buy like maybe 6, like 2 of like the shifty ones and like 2 of the neutral ones and like 1 of the jewel tone ones and then 1 of the glitter ones or whatever it is that you like the look of, and just build your own little palette with a couple of these multichromes, and you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love playing with that, but you do not need multichromes in every palette. You don't need eyeshadow palettes that are €100 because they have so many multichromes in. I'd rather have smaller palettes. I've said this many times before. This is why I love my Fantasy Cosmetica 9 pans, because they have that blend. They have a couple of really good mattes, a couple of like standard shimmers, maybe foily metallics in, and then they have like 1 or 2 duochromes or multichromes in. Fine by me. Very workable, nicely curated. And what? Those 9 pans are like what? $45? That, to me, then a lot of things come together. It's why I like Gloss Gots. I know a lot of people dislike the packaging of Gloss Gots because it looks cheap, but it's not any cheaper than this. It's just cardboard. It just doesn't look shiny. Like, what do you think? That other indie brands do spend a lot of money on their packaging? No. The packaging is probably one of the cheapest things about the entire palette. Please realize that. Packaging is never the thing that the amount, like the cost of the product actually goes towards. It's marketing and product formula, and even formula-wise. that again is not the biggest. Like if you pay 100 or 150 euros for an eyeshadow palette, the actual material cost of the formulation inside it is like what, maybe a fifth of that price, if that. Even if it has the special shades in. Like, makeup formulations are just not that expensive, but of course there have to be margins and the packaging and the marketing and the shipping and the warehouse and the website and the people behind it, and if there's customer service, that all needs to be paid for. And if it's like brands like a Charlotte Tilbury or whatever, they also need like their store spaces, like they pay a lot of money for being on the floor of your department store or being inside of Sephora. Brands like that also have to pay for that. So the price of makeup really doesn't only go to formulation and packaging. There's a lot more to it, I feel. And the specialness, of course, then ups the price because, of course, those formulas are going to be more expensive. But I definitely think that brands, if they wanted to, if they were to make smaller palettes, have less special shades in, they could very easily knock down the prices of a lot of the palettes. And I'm especially talking about more expensive indie brands here. Smaller palettes still have interesting color stories, for sure. And you can put those special shades in, and I think Angelica actually showed a Gloss Gods palette, but it was their latest release, which is actually 15 pans, but most Gloss Gods palettes are 12 pans and they retail for 40 euros, and they still have multichromes in, and flakies and holographic shimmers, and they still do them, but it's not the entire palette. They're surrounded by really good mattes, and they do a couple of old shimmer palettes. Not sure if all of those are still available. But I feel like brands like that showcase that it is possible to cut down on costs even when you do have the special shades in. But it won't be the focus of the palette. It won't be the reason why. I don't need magnetic pans. I don't need a mirror. I don't need, like, there are so many things that brands do that I feel are so superfluous. Whoever uses the mirror in their palettes, like something like this. I mean, I think this is a good example. I think this retails for like what, 65, maybe 70 euros. It's the Bella Beauty Bar and No Pore collab, the Coalescence. It has a mirror. It has, as you can see here, you can take out the shades. They are magnetic palettes. This comes with 16 shades, so I definitely think that that's one of the reasons how they like were able to keep the cost down a little bit, to just give you fewer shades. But I already pointed it out when I showed this in my haul. A shade like this, every palette has it by now, so it's not that special anymore to have the special shades. So I definitely feel like a lot of brands are, in the next year or two, I definitely think we will see sort of like a pivot where brands will hopefully focus on some slightly different things. I don't need the palette to be so many different things. I just want good eyeshadow. And I want eyeshadow that works and that's less prone to creasing and that's going to last all day and still looks beautiful. That's all I want. And I definitely feel with indie brands, it's sort of gotten a little out of hand with all of the special shades. And I definitely think there are still a market, as you're seeing with a lot of the Blend Bunny releases, the Alice Atlantis and now also the Rotten with Maycroft that they've done. They do an all matte palette and then have the shimmer separately. So you can buy them if you want, but most people will want the shimmers because those are the special things. So it's actually a way to get you to buy more. I really don't understand that people fall for that marketing technique where it's like, we'll give you like all the options that you want. We have a bit like with the Alice Atlantis, I think it's so smart. It's so well done. And people fall for it because you have the big palette and then there's two separate palettes for those people who may just want the warm tones or who may just want the cool tones. And then the shimmers are done separately. And I'm like, just give me a small version where I have the versatility of both of those things, but like, you know what? Like the size of one of the smaller palettes and then replacing some of those mattes, which some are the shimmers in, and then have it be one palette. That could do, like, that would be like a 15 pan palette that can do everything that those 4 palettes, well, Of course, the two small ones are the big one essentially, but those two palettes can do like together. Like it could exist in just one item, and this way they are just getting you to buy more. It's so clever. It's so clever. It's so clever because of course everybody wants the special things. Everybody wants that. And that has been the reason. It's not that I don't love Blend Bunny. I love Blend Bunny. I think they have one of the best formulas out there. I can see why people like them so much. But I don't need a full gradient of mattes. Again, I happen to have an example here. It's not Blend Bunny, but the new Unearthly Gothic Romance was sent to me in PR. I don't need this. I don't need 4 shades of purple to set up a look. I really don't. I don't need these 4 shades of green either. I really, really don't. So while I get the idea and I get the appeal, especially for people who like doing their makeup in a certain way, you don't need it. If you give me one light shade, like this palette actually is one of the worst offenders. We get this warmer toned light shade and we get this white. If I were given this shade and I add the white, I get this. If I have this shade and I add this, I get that. But because people don't play around with their makeup anymore in that way, because brands are giving them exactly what, like, this is exactly it, and then people start doing those looks, whatever happened to just figuring out how colors play together, how to make the most, like, especially with mattes can be blended together. Or you can pick up a little bit of both shades on a brush. You don't need a million mattes in a palette to set up a look. If you have a light, a medium, and a dark, and you have it in 2 undertones, you can pretty much mix and match everything. This is such a throwback for me to the beauty breakdown or makeup breakdown, what it was called, the 2 Australian ladies. It's such a sad thing, but I think they moved away from each other so they could no longer film. But they used to pull apart eyeshadow palettes and they would like destroy the whole thing. And whatever it was that they ended up putting together, it always turned brown. Once they blended all the shades together, it always came to a brown. Everything, every single palette they destroyed. So I thought that was always so funny. And I just feel that that's something that we're starting to lose when it comes to using makeup. This is why I feel I don't need a million mattes, because mattes, like if I have certain things in a set, I just need a good crease shade. And then I don't even need a very light matte. I just want a light shimmer. And then something to deepen up a look or to use as liner, I think makes a palette really versatile. But if I have one good crease shade, I can usually do whatever it is that I want with the palette. So I don't need a million variations of the same thing. I really, really don't. And I definitely feel that that's an area of makeup where we just kind of lost the plot altogether, I feel. And multichromes are, like I said, the makeup like final boss of overconsumption and oh, this shift and that shift and we need all the shifts. You don't need all the shifts. So like by now I've tried so many different multichromes, and like I said, I still rate my Cliona ones that I've bought over time, slowly but surely curating my own palette. I still like those better. They are still the most special. They still offer me something that I don't find in palettes, because I find that in palettes, we always get like a rendition of the same 5 different types of multichromes. Whereas the possibilities with multichromes are also endless, because with palettes, they're trying to still appeal to the masses. So those like reddish green gold shimmers or the purple blue gold, like those are in every single palette, or like those like lavendery periwinkle things with a pinky flash, like in the Coalescence. They are everywhere, and they're in every palette. So if you're putting a multichrome into a palette, make it a good one and make it something we don't already have a million times over. It's so frustrating to see. And I think that especially if you're just watching YouTube and you're someone with a smaller collection, these things perhaps don't even stand out. But as someone who's tried, I think, over 1,000 eyeshadow palettes in my lifetime, like I would have to add up all of the eyeshadow palettes I used to have and like go through all of my colors. That would be a task, but I think I've tried over 1,000 eyeshadow palettes in my lifetime, from really, really terrible ones to really, really beautiful ones with multi-chromes in and whatnot. But I really, really feel like it's a little bit of a scam, which is why I still like rate a Natasha Denona I Need a Warm or I Need a Nude so much more highly than I do some of my indie brand palettes. Are they beautiful? Yes. Do I love them? Yes. But I've said it many times as well already at the start, like very often they have these really emollient formulas. And that just has me questioning, especially since my Adept Minka palette expired within 2 years. It just started to smell like paint thinner, this really, really strong scent. Especially if you're spending this much money on an eyeshadow palette, like Adept palettes are close to 100 euros now. And I'm just nervous to see whether that will go, because the thing with makeup I have found, because I have such a large collection, there are definitely products that I don't use that often. And those tend to expire less quickly than products I use on the daily. Which may seem weird, but I do feel that every single time you open up a product, you expose it to air, and therefore bacteria can get inside it. The more you use it, the more you go into it with a brush. It's why I feel some of my favorite bronzers have started to get hard pan, not because I don't use them enough or because I don't love them, but because I use them over and over and over, they start to get hard pan because of the usage. You know what I mean? Before I can ever even hit pan on it. And I definitely think that that's another issue with makeup. Like if you just keep it closed and you don't use it very often, less air gets inside it. And if you then keep it in a dry, dark place, you can use it for a very long time, is my experience. But with some of these indie brand palettes, like I said, with the Minka, I think I used it twice and it already expired because the formula was just so emollient that it was very prone to expiring. And I definitely feel that that's where also with these more expensive palettes and like these very emollient shimmers that we get, because the emollient of the shimmer is actually what also makes them super shiny and super sparkly and super foily and shifty and stuff like that. Like it helps with the way things look and lay down initially upon first usage. Like you get the palette in, it looks beautiful. But how is that palette going to look in a year time? Is it gonna go moldy? Is it gonna last like past the 5-year mark? Like in theory, I no longer am, because it's getting to that point where I'm like, it's changed a little bit. But in theory, there are eyeshadow palettes that I still have in my house that are in my makeup memory box that are over 10 years old that I could still use because the formula still holds together. It doesn't smell weird. It doesn't look weird. It still swatches beautifully, and using it with a brush. All of those Urban Decay Naked palettes I have, I could still use them in a heartbeat, including my original Naked 1 and 2 that I bought in like 2010. I mean, I could still use them safely on my eyes. I don't want to because they're that old that I'm like, that's getting to the point. But some of these indie brand palettes that have these really emollient, super greasy feeling shimmers in, do they look beautiful? Yes. Are they going to stand the test of time like my Urban Decay Naked palettes do? No. Because most of those things are gonna go bad and they're gonna expire really quickly as well. And then if I compare that to the price point of these things being twice the amount of money that a naked palette used to cost. I mean, paying 55 euros at the time was a lot of money. That was a lot of money at the time. And now it's like sort of where most eyeshadow palettes start, I feel. Like, try finding a good eyeshadow palette under 50 euros nowadays. It's very difficult. Very difficult. And I feel like the whole like multi-chrome thing is definitely like a catalyst for that. So, I don't know. I just, like I said, I do love a multi-chrome. They are beautiful shadows. And they're great to work with if you know how to play with them. But it shouldn't be the main focus. And I just, like I said, I feel it makes brands lazy. It just makes brands lazy. So that's just my 2 cents. I definitely think that the focus on multi-chrome just has to stop. Things shouldn't just look pretty the day you buy it. Things should last a long time. That's step 1, especially if you pay this much money for it. That's step 2. And step 3, we could pay less for our makeup if there were less of these special shimmers in. It's this entire sort of full circle moment for me, and I definitely feel we don't need it. Again, you only need a couple of really good multichromes in your life, and then you can do almost anything. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Maybe you do feel differently. That's of course totally fine. But let me know in a comment down below how you feel about multichromes, whether you need them in every single palette, or whether you're a bit more like me where you're like, yeah, I can kind of see that it's just adding a lot of, it's just a frivolous extra sort of little thing that we then have in our little makeup collections. But yeah, they're beautiful. I can also understand it from that perspective. I mean, like I said, I'm a bit of a magpie myself. If it's really shiny and sparkly, I always fall for it. But yeah, I just don't really feel we need it in every single palette that's out there. We really don't. So let me know in a comment down below how you feel about multichromes. I would love to know. For now, I will be back with a new video really, really soon, and I hope you would like to thumbs this up in the meantime, and I hope to see you again really, really soon. Bye-bye.